The views expressed here on a Thursday are not necessarily a true representation of ours. We're only here for the drama.
And drama you gonna get. Fugitive, good morning. Fugitive, say good morning to everybody for me. Good morning to everybody for me.
From the fugitive.
From the fugitive. He says, to my understanding, it's not really to seek permission from the police, but to notify them in the case of security and public safety. If things get out of hand, then you shut it down. They are really begging for trouble with this approach, though. All right. On the line, we've got Mrs. Kay Bacchus-Baptiste. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Crystal. Good morning, Extreme fans. Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to the Wake Up Call. Of course, no stranger.
Right.
Hold a second. Let me see if I could All right. Sorry about that. Okay, well done. All right, so how are you this morning?
I am fine, thank you, in spite of this crisis that Vincent is in right now.
Oh boy. So there are two things that we want to touch on this morning. The most recent arrests, what is really happening with that? I understand they were charged with the same things that Kenson King and Adriana King were charged for. We have to touch on that. And we also have to touch on the Commissioner of Police's response to the letter notifying them of the protest and the procession for next week. So maybe we could start with the arrests. Let's go there first. What happened yesterday?
Well, yesterday I got a call from Colin Graham, and he told me the police were armed at his home, Black Squad, with weapons, and that they came to take him in for, they said they came to take him in. So I asked them if he was under arrest, and they said no. I said, well, Colin, you do not have to go with them. Whereupon they changed and said, yes, he's under arrest. I'm just showing you how silly the whole thing is. And I said, well, okay, if you're under arrest, you need to go with them. So he went with them to the police station in Kingstown. And at the time, I could not leave the office, so I called our colleague, Israel Bruce, and asked him if he could go to the police station and meet Colin, which he did. In the meantime, I got also calls from our General Secretary, TJ, that is James, that the police, he understands that the police came to NDP headquarters looking for him and went to his home again armed and definitely terrorizing his children, who were worried as to why the police is coming here with arms looking for their father. So I contacted the Commissioner of Police to find out what is going on, why they're looking for Tyrone James, and he said to me that, but by WhatsApp, that they need him to have a talk about the protest. So I said, well, okay, if that is the case, I will ask him to come to my office, and you can send your CID men to interview him. He was reluctant to do that. And then he said, okay, well, we need to do an electronic interview. Now, that is absolutely ridiculous to be wasting time doing electronic interview on these petty matters, as I call them. Anyway, so I said, well, my client will not be given an electronic interview. If you want to have an interview with him, I will facilitate it at my office. He took some time back and forth because obviously he didn't want to do that. They already had in their mind what they wanted to do. So I said, well, listen, the only way I'm bringing him in is if you tell me that he's needed and he's under arrest, that you want to arrest him. He hemmed and hawed, and then he came back and he said, yes, we're going to arrest him. So I therefore arranged for Tyrone.
That sounds like a bit of confusion there.
Precisely. So I arranged for Tyrone to go to the Kingstown barracks, and I went there with him. And the police, they seemed embarrassed to me, to tell you the truth, because they said, oh, they want to ask him some questions in relation to the protests, the last two protests that we had. And it was the same thing. And they had already charged Colin by that time and released him on bail. So I said, look, you're all right up the charges yet? And they asked him one or two questions, and he gave them certain answers in relation to the hard work he's done for St. Vincent as Commander-in-Chief from the Coast Guard. And he has no intention of breaking any of our laws. He believes in the Constitution, words to that effect. And then they charged him. What is odd is that they actually I think they took fingerprints as they did to
Biometrics, yeah.
the other words, yes, to the Kings, which is really ridiculous. They took fingerprints as if you're a common criminal, and it is absolutely disgusting and against all directions from the United Nations that you do not, first of all, arrest persons for these sort of offences, except it is something that they out of order that they did. Certainly not for just attending a protest, because that is all they can say. They attended a protest, and they believe that they were concerned in organizing. I don't know what that means. So you don't arrest them. You do not charge them for something like that. And to arrest them and charge them and take fingerprints is actually extreme, and this can only be to intimidate and to stamp your authority. The police is overstepping, but that's not all. They told me they have 3 other persons they're going after.
I was about to ask you, in reference to the 10 individuals whose homes were, quote unquote, raided initially, if these 10 individuals would eventually be charged with the same 4 charges.
Well, I can only tell you that my belief is the police, they're planning a series of attacks, and I say attacks advisably. They're actually using their power to attack the citizens of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and force them into submission. So they're going to take, because if they really wanted Tyrone, they came to his home first, right after the last protest. And they could have said so. They could have called. They could have called me or called Tyrone himself and said, look, we want you to come in. No, they kept drawing it out. And this is like the 3rd week now. They suddenly decided they're going to arrest him. To me, it is going to be a series of planned attacks on our citizens. So now they tell me that they want 3 other persons. I do not believe that that's the end of it. I promised to bring in the 3 persons this morning. The police said, oh, they're busy. Not this morning, because they're busy.
Are you able to share those 3 names?
I prefer to wait because I have not been able to contact 2 of the 3 persons. So I don't want to put the name on radio, without speaking to them. Only one I was able to speak with. So they are going after 3 other persons. Who knows who else they will go after in the other week coming up. So I totally condemn this action, and I want all right-thinking Vincentians to condemn it. It is absolutely illegal to try to stop protesters from attending a protest. That is against the law, all our constitutional rights, and that is all these people did, attend a protest. So far, the persons who actually organized, they haven't arrested them yet. Maybe they're saving them for next week. I do not know. But whatever it is, this is something that Vincentians must recognize is not acceptable at all in democratic society. We all have to speak out, and I'm encouraging all persons. In fact, I'm saying and I'm predicting that because of this, those demonstrations are going to swell. They're going to be even larger.
You think so?
You cannot stifle people like that. You cannot.
Okay. I want to ask for your interpretation of the Public Order Act that is being made reference to Section 5.1, Section 5.2, because I see here they were charged that they did knowingly take part in a public procession or meeting in contravention with these. What do those mean?
Well, first of all, there are a number of provisions in that act that I say are unconstitutional. I have a case from St. Kitts where that a similar act was taken to court, and the court declared that some of the provisions were unconstitutional because all citizens have a right to protest. It is enshrined in the Constitution and in all the international conventions that we have signed on to. And our court said that Public Order Act in St. Kitts was unconstitutional because it was not necessary in a democratic society to give the Commissioner of Police those kinds of powers. Now, the act is similar to ours, not exactly the same, but there are provisions in that act that are definitely, and I told the Commissioner of Police that. I was in a meeting with the Commissioner of Police when he invited the NDP to come to discuss the issue. And I told him, I read the sections for him. I said, Colin, you are a lawyer. these sections cannot be constitutional. And he couldn't answer. He said, well, the court will decide. Right there and then, I knew that they were going to use those sections to try to stop protest. But they are wrong. They're going to be proven wrong with it. Because I have said it, that the Public Order Act does not apply to protest. It is archaic and it contravenes the Constitution. So they may say, if you want to have a procession, that you need to not ask permission, notify.
Right. I could actually pull it up here. It says any person organizing or concerned in organizing any public meeting or public procession shall notify the commissioner at least 24 hours before the time fixed.
And the law will show, and the guidance, that the reason for notifying them is to protect the protectors and to make sure that order is maintained. It is not to force them to go somewhere else or to prescribe what they should do and how they should protest. Colin John is absolutely wrong. I don't care who is pulling his strings. He is a lawyer and ought to know better. You cannot, in response to a letter notifying you where you're going to have a procession, tell the people to go somewhere completely different. And especially it is a trade union. Trade unions have a right to picket. That is a right to protest. They are even in a better category, in a special category. I have not read these trade unions
Acts?
Not the
Is
act.
the act
They would have had some sort of agreement. They
trade
must
union
have
agreement?
some sort of trade union agreement. I have not read it. But I know that trade union in itself have certain rights to protest, certain rights to picket. Are you going to tell me the commissioner of police could tell them they can't picket where they want to picket?
Wow.
Absolutely ludicrous. And I am ashamed of Gonzalez, who says he's a lawyer and has been silent since the commissioner of police and his armed men have been raiding Vincentian's homes. And what they did yesterday, and what they're continuing to do, and to stop lawful protest, to try to stop lawful protest. Why is Rav Gonzalez silent so far?
But do you expect him to say anything or make it appear as if he wants to influence when he really and truly should not be doing anything like that?
This is utter rubbish of him talking about not doing what. He is the Minister of National Security. He is the Prime Minister.
But the Royal St. Vincent and the Grenadines Police Force and the Commissioner of Police, they're independent and supposed to be acting on their own accord.
That is, I say, he is the Minister of National Security. He himself says he has meetings with them sometimes 3 times a day. Don't listen to Rav Gonzalez when he comes with this sidetracking nonsense. He's not being forthright with the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. He is the Prime Minister, and I am calling on him to, therefore, if he is saying that raiding persons' homes is wrong, because it seems as though he's saying, oh, I didn't tell them to do it, I don't know anything about it. Well, you know now. Come out and condemn it then. You cannot condone what the Commissioner of Police is doing unless you are part of it.
Have you attempted to reach out? Have you attempted to reach out to him since?
No, I haven't attempted to reach out to him. I can do that, but I'm doing it now publicly. I did it last night in a little clip that we put on the NDP chat after the incident, and I'm doing it now publicly because Gonzalez is a lawyer, and in another world, he certainly would not be condoning the fact that trade unions can't protest anymore, and that the Commissioner of Police could tell persons where they must go to protest. Rav knows that is wrong. Colin knows that is wrong, and the people of St. Vincent must know that it is wrong. No Commissioner of Police can take away the right to protest from the people. No Prime Minister can do it either. No one can do that. In fact, the law shows clearly all the cases that spontaneous protest it happens all the time. So if you decide suddenly you want to protest for something, you're going to have to notify the Prime Minister, the Commissioner of Police 24 hours before. All of that is just mere procedure. And in any event, I've always maintained...
But basically just for manners' sake, right?
Sorry?
Just for manners' sake.
For manners' sake, yes, for manners' sake. But I'm saying that the act cannot tell you, If you don't do that, you can be arrested and you can be charged.
Cannot or should not? Because it says at the
Because
bottom
I
there, the organizer or
say,
any person who knowingly takes part in any public meeting or public
have
procession.
you looked at the definition of meetings?
Let me scroll back up.
The definition of meetings has to do with where you are having not a protest, a meeting where persons would be addressing and discussing issues. You're not discussing issues in a protest. You have gone past that stage.
Oh, it says yes. That is true.
Look at it.
Purpose, meeting means a meeting held for the purpose of the discussion of matters of public interest or for the purpose of the expression of views on such matters.
You understand?
Yes.
So they are telling you what kind of meetings they are giving the police, the authority, so that you must just notify them. Remember, it's just to notify, right? So the definition of meetings there, to my mind, don't mean a protest. You ain't going to discuss issues at a protest. You have already done that, and you have taken a decision that this must go or this must not happen.
Okay.
So it does not, to my mind, include protest.
If that is the case, if it does not, to your mind, to your interpretation, if it does not include protest, then can an organization say, I'm going to hold a protest and I can do that without notifying the Commissioner of Police?
Of course. And in any event, does he ask you how you notify them?
It just says 24 hours prior.
Okay, so let me ask you something. All the advertisements that went out throughout the whole way, they tell the police know that they must go and get barriers 2 days before and store them in the courthouse yard so they can put them up. They're going to come to court to say they weren't notified. I am telling you people, this is nonsense. This is disingenuous of the police. The police marched around Kingston with the protesters for the last 2 protests. Marched around Kingston with them. Are you going to tell me that they weren't notified? What sort of foolishness is this bringing these charges?
Let me ask you something else.
To intimidate.
Okay, let me ask you something else. Going forward, what's going to happen? Are the PSU, or will the PSU accept what the Commissioner of Police, I mean, he is the Commissioner of Police, he has a certain level of authority. Are they going to accept? Do you think that they should accept? Do you think that they should just go and protest where they initially wanted to because they have a right to assembly?
My opinion is this. No one can tell you how to protest and when to protest. That is the law. That is what we have signed on to. The United Nations, the Inter-American Commission on Protest and Human Rights makes it clear, right, that this right is a sacred right and it's certain obligations are placed on governments to follow the Inter-American Commission report. St. Vincent cannot just decide willy-nilly not to follow it. Therefore, no commissioner of police, no prime minister can tell people how and when not to protest. What they can do is, if the protest gets out of order, of course you keep it in track. The protest must be lawful. The protest must not be illegal in terms of disturbing the public peace. That is where the police come in. The police don't come in to stop you before and to prescribe where you should and should not go. Those provisions in the Act that speaks about processions and keeping the peace and so forth, those provisions that tend to show that you cannot protest 200 yards from certain buildings will be ruled unconstitutional.
Okay.
You can't in Kingstown. In other words, you can never protest in Kingstown. That is what you're going to let the commissioner do to us. You can no longer protest in Kingstown because you must go 200 yards away from a building. It makes no sense. It's ludicrous.
One final question, right? One final question. What can be done in terms of the law to either put a foot down, to either specify, to either put in or to clear up all the inconsistencies and the misunderstandings with these acts and laws? What can be done?
Well, eventually, these cases that they brought against Henson and among them, those cases will have to be tested and go to the Court of Appeal, because if they dismiss them, well, then we're not going to take it further. But these have to go what usually should happen is that the matter is taken to the court on a constitutional motion to interpret the law and declare it unconstitutional. I think that will happen eventually, but this is not what this government is after. This government has one short-term plan, and that is to stamp out protests. This is to be vindictive, get at certain people, because if you look at who they're choosing to arrest, it makes no sense. They're just trying to get at persons who they think that they can victimize and control so that there will be no protest.
So you think they're targeting those individuals because they're most vocal for the NDP?
Yes, they're targeting persons to send a message. But they do not realize that this is not the time for that. This is not the time for that. Vincentians are not afraid anymore. Vincentians are going to stand up for their rights.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to leave with us? Will you be down there next week, or will you be in Arnersville? Will you be in Kingston or Arnersville? Well, okay. All right. Enough said. Enough said. All right, Kay, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I know you're very busy. You have your hands full. You have a boy real plenty clients these days, boy. All right.
Safe SBG with the grace of God.
All right, most definitely. Have a wonderful day and thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Yeah, Crystal,
clarity?
Yes,
Well, clarity
clear,
from one barrister at law. It is interesting, highlighting the definition of meeting. That didn't click in my head.
Oh.
I just
What
thought
type of meeting?
that it did
That
not.
a protest is a meeting.
Because the act, there are certain definitions at the beginning of the act, right? Chapter 396, Public Order Act, they will set certain definitions.
Yeah.
All right. And under number 2, interpretation, it says meeting means a meeting held for the purpose of the discussion of matters of public interest or for the purpose of the expression of views on such matters.
Right.
Do those things happen?
In a protest?
In a protest?
No. No. We're just
Expression of views.
expression of
Discussion of
it doesn't
matters.
meet that. It doesn't meet it. No, it doesn't meet that.
Boy, I tell you.
But one takeaway from this interview is that the protest is going to go on.
The phone lines are going. Let's take one quickly. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
Morning.
You want to speak up for me?
Yeah. Good morning.
Yeah. Listen, you hearing?
Yes. Go ahead, please.
I think I try to understand what I heard Kay Bacchus said, right? Consult, notify. She said that the commissioner heard the ad all on the radio and what's not. So that's how you notify the commissioner.
Well, according to her, it does not specify the means of notifying.
No, it's like a dance. If I'm having a dance and I'm advertising, I'm going to have a dance. You come. That's notification to the patrons. And I think that she's informing that by putting all those ads, that we are going to have a protest. That is
by
suitable.
way of notifying.
That's
It's
suitable.
it's very informal.
Basically, yeah.
It's very
It's an
informal.
informal notification.
Lacks respect, but
All right.
To talk about, everybody say everything the Prime Minister, he controlling the commissioner, he controlling this, that.
yeah, that's what school children say.
I heard you ask her something concerning, okay, because he's the Minister of National Security. If he has influence and whatever. But then she calling out the Prime Minister to make a statement to condone
Okay. True.
act of the police on the duty. Then again, she talk about police going in people. Police always going into citizens' home armed.
Yeah. Well, that's true because I think the unit, part of their whole attire or the whole setup is that they have guns. So whether they come, they walk with the guns. They can't leave it in the vehicle. Got to walk with it.
Every day when police do it. Then again, with the in the last protest, they did have amplified songs.
They did?
Yeah,
I think they were just
had
making noise.
They were making noise and then
just
they
making noise.
had
They didn't have amplified music. I think they were just shouting.
amplified in the sense they had
was
they
no
had
shouting.
those horns thing.
That's that amplified,
If you look back at the video, right? In Building Alone, you will see a song on a car.
That's different.
That's different.
That's different. That's one individual.
Yeah, passing through.
I sure she was charged too. Wasn't she charged?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure she
We
was
gotta get the list
charged.
of all the people who charge.
They had, I think, is a monitor with about 2 line arrays on it. That Dr. Freddy spoke on the system also.
Oh.
I don't know if you guys said you can go back over.
Okay, so there was an amplified setup, and he actually basically, used it.
I'm not a lawyer. I can't answer that.
You guys can go back to the video and you'll see.
Yeah. I remember that. I remember that.
Thank
All
you,
right.
man. That's
All right. Thank you so much. All right. We have some responses coming in on the WhatsApp. We'll get to those shortly. But I think you have any over there from Facebook?
There's a lot. I love the calls this morning. I don't know if you want
You're
to
supposed
give me
to
30
read the
seconds.
things on the Facebook so the listeners could hear, what's going on the
I'm-
live.
I'm trying to
Those who
tiptoe around.
might be in the car listening. They want to hear what the Facebook people saying
Yeah,
too.
but
Anyways,
I'm
all right.
tiptoed around.
Leave them for after, okay?
You know the reasons why I tiptoe around particular things.
Right. You don't want to read what people say.
I don't have
Okay.
clothes for the courts. Yeah.
Okay, that black and white suitable, but then it is very white behind bars. Okay, so we're gonna take a quick break. We'll come back with your responses and some more calls. So hold on the calls. All right. Before we go though, buy, build, drive with SVG TCCU.